Tonight we welcome Santa Barbara and W. Royce Adams, Professor Emeritus of English from Santa Barbara City College. During his teaching career, he wrote over 20 textbooks dealing with reading, composition, and study skills. And I can personally attest that he's a really tough grader. Royce gave me a C, which was probably deserved. He actually, I was struggling whether I would let him do an event here or not. But his book is good. After retirement, he began writing middle grade and juvenile novels for young readers who find reading difficult. As of late, he has turned his attention to publishing short stories for adults. His works have appeared in the Rockford Review, Black Fox Literary Magazine, Catamaran, In the Depths, Co-Review, Chaffee Review, Adelaide, and Bosque. W. Royce Adams' fictional works include the Raya Rubia Tales, is that correct? Raya. The Computer's Nerd, Me and Jay, and Against the Current, a collection of short stories. Tonight, he is here to talk about his newly published novel. Please congratulate and welcome Royce Adams for As Time Goes By. So you didn't think anybody'd show up? Are you happy?
Yes, well, I'm very happy.
Okay.
I'm astounded.
As you should be, because we're all very thrilled to be hearing you talk about As Time Goes By. I have to ask, why a novel first? You're doing short stories.
Yeah, because I am basically a short story writer. Mm-hmm. But I figured you could take short stories and make them run together into a novel, and that's what I tried to do here. Mm-hmm. Every reading class or writing class I've had always says, write what you know. And I know a little bit about being old. So I decided I would create a character called Old who wasn't me, but who could be anybody that has lived 90 years or so, okay? Mm-hmm. And since 90 years is a long time, it's difficult to put it all in one book. So what I decided to do was to just have him have Old, main character, that's the only name I've given him, have Old start thinking about his life, since all of his loved ones have died and he's left alone, and really begins to wonder, what's his life been about? Has it been worth anything? Has he done anything in life worthwhile? So he starts writing down pieces of his life, what he calls windows into his life. And while they seem disjointed beginningly, they begin to come together kind of like a mosaic and form the character of Old. So by the time you finish the book, you've seen Old, and he's been a pretty average guy. And one of the thoughts of in writing this was I read so many books and reviews about people who suffer maybe from mental health problems or being abused by their parents or drug addicts or people suffering from immigration problems. And those should be written, those stories should be written. But I think all of us have stories. And I wanted Old to be sort of a person that could be anybody who has aged and lived a life. Mm. So my book is basically historical because it starts in 1930, and there's really no ending in it, so I don't know how old he is now. But he comes to the end, finally, and realizes what has been most important thing to him in his life. Mm. And I just feel that a lot of people have gone through ordinary lives, have their own stories, and this is just another story about a person who's nothing special, but has lived an interesting life and enjoyed life. And so the book has a lot of love in it. Love of parents, puppy love, love of music, love of learning, love of friendship. And as he goes older, each of these mosaic pieces, I think, pulls out a piece of something about love. So to me, it's a book about love, basically.
That's great. Would you like to share some of it? Would you like to share some of it with us right now?
Read something?
Yeah.
Yes. First, I'd like to say thank you all for coming. I'm overwhelmed. And I thank you, Michael. I'm sorry about that C. Maybe
I earned it probably, so it's all right.
Anyway, I also would like to thank Sharon Durham, who edited this book and helped me tremendously. And of course, my wife Jane, who also is my greatest critic. And so they have done a lot to help this book come together. So I thank you, and I thank Chaucer's for doing this. Okay. All right, I'll read a passage from this that it starts in, as I say, it's sort of historical, and the section I'll read starts in about 1948 or 49, and it's a section called Good Golly, Miss Molly. And even though Good Golly, Miss Molly, incidentally, every chapter begins with the title of a song. And hopefully that the content of that chapter reflects something that the title reflects, or the song itself reflects. If I could find the right page now. Did I bring the right book? There we go. Yes. There we go. At this point in the story, Old and his friend are in college, and they're going to get drafted into the Korean War. And it wasn't like in Vietnam. If you got drafted, you got drafted, and there was no choice. So we decided we did not want to go into the Army. So Old and his friend joined the Navy, and he's at Great Lakes Naval Training Center. The Navy had more recruits than they could handle. Hundreds of us had to sleep on cots in a gymnasium until they could clear enough barracks to accommodate us. If I remember correctly, it was 3 days before we received our uniforms and placement into a company barracks. It was then I was confronted with my first naval engagement. I had just made up my newly appointed bunk bed and stowed my uniform and gear. My mood had slipped from excitement at joining the Navy to disappointment at being separated from Ted, who was placed in a different company. I now felt alone, and a growing apprehension regarding boot training and homesickness was starting to set in. I couldn't help but notice 3 fellow recruits were eyeing me and conferring together. My body stiffened as they approached and blocked any movement on my part. Their looks gave me pause, and I had no idea who they were or what they wanted. And the demeanor of these particular 3 did not convey, "Welcome, sailor." 2 of them had Fogarty stenciled on their shirts. The other name I don't remember. The 2 Fogartys could have been twins. Their eyes were deep set in their faces and seemed colorless under dark, thick eyebrows. Over 6 feet, they crossed their arms in unison, exposing their taut biceps, stressing against their regulation blue denim shirts, a move with seeming intimidation. Already weathered looking at a young age, their recruit hair left the sides of their heads and necks pale compared to the rest of their sunburned faces. It was a comical look in a way, like that Bogart haircut in the movie Treasure of Sierra Madre. But those 2, no one would ever want to laugh at. One of the Fogartys spoke up. "What's your name?" I told him my name, though plain to see stenciled right there over my shirt pocket. "Yeah, we thought so," the other Fogarty said. "You look like him." He grew even larger as he spoke, and while I shrank from my 5 foot 10 inches and 124 pounds, where my uniforms were filled in tight, Mine hung loose. Their uniforms were hung tight. Mine hung loose, with my drooping belt pulled as tight as it would go, making me feel even more vulnerable to whatever it was about to inspire. I looked at the third member of the trio, almost the look-alike to the brothers. Every nerve in my body seemed to know more than I did and sent out a flood of warming signals. I cleared my throat and somehow managed to speak up. I don't remember meeting you guys before. I knew if we had, there'd be no memory lapse on my part. Despite my growing unease, I couldn't help but think of them as Eenie, Meenie, and Miney. Thank you God there was no Mo. Yeah, well, we haven't exactly met, but me and my brother, we know who you are, Eenie said, clearly an accusation, and of what I had no idea. Yeah, we seen ya, Meenie, the other brother said. He reached to scratch his ear and I flinched. What did they want? Where? I don't remember meeting you. I kept looking from one to the other. We seen you whenever you brought our sister home from a date. One I now labeled Eenie said this as if he had just made something very clear to me, but it didn't. Your sister? Oh, relief. They think I'm someone else. Yeah, you know, Molly Fogarty. Molly? And then I realized who they were talking about. Molly, sure, yeah. I'm not sure I ever knew or paid attention to her last name. Well, she's our little sister, Amy emphasized. Oh, so you guys are from Carbondale? Yeah, sure. That's where I met her. I scrambled for words, worrying about what she had told them. Sounding natural with no saliva in my mouth wasn't easy. And if she was pregnant, it wasn't me. If those two were Molly's brothers, they had to be from a different father. I remembered her as a petite 5'2", at best with fair skin and short light hair. Meanie spoke up. Yeah, we know where you're from, but we've been discussing something she wondered about, and it got us thinking about it too. I felt a drip of perspiration leave my armpit and slide down my side. Any manly qualities I might have thought I had wafted into vapor puffs. I had never tried anything inappropriate with Molly. What might she have told them? Miney, the friend, spoke up. Yeah, she says you're a really good dancer. The emphasis he placed on dancer, along with his smirk, gave away his opinion of the subject. Molly's the good dancer, a feeble retort, as another drop of perspiration took its time following the first one down. Where was this going? Wanting to get to the point, I asked, is there a problem? What did she say? You hurt her feelings, Eenie said. Yeah, Miney said, you did. I did? My shocked memory went on a swift search and rescue mission, trying to think how I might have hurt her feelings. Nothing surfaced, and I felt myself sinking. She's told them something. They want revenge for something I didn't do. I noticed other recruits in the barracks started gathering around, sensing something interesting was developing. Yeah, she says you'd walk her home but would never kiss her. Meanie cocked his head at me. That's kind of strange, isn't it? All those times made her feel bad, like something was wrong with her. Miney, the friend, was quick to insert, or maybe something wrong with you? Uh-oh. Are they thinking what I think they're thinking? Like an unexpected bullet train whooshing out of a dark tunnel, it hit me. How do I tap dance out of this one? True, I never had kissed her, but did that make something wrong with her or me? I remember Molly was cute, but I never had any kind of feeling for her. I saw her maybe 5 or 6 times at local dances, and she was just fun to dance with. Sometimes I'd walk her home afterwards, but nothing happened. We were never officially dated. She apparently took our relationship more seriously than I did. I guess I could have kissed her, but I was kind of shy in that way. Was that what all this is about? I should have kissed their sister? Almost in syncopation, the three of them folded their arms across their chests as if they were trying with difficulty to keep their hands off me. They looked at me expectantly. What was I supposed to say? You like girls or not? Miney face flushing. Whoa, wait, look, I like girls and I like your sister. If I insulted her, I didn't mean. You got a girlfriend? Miney interrupted. Well, yeah, sure. The only answer possible at this juncture. Actually, though, not anymore, I didn't. But this was not the time to explain. What's her name? Got a picture? Miney stayed relentless. He didn't want to believe me. I learned a body could freeze and sweat at the same time. Now they wanted proof of my phantom girlfriend. In desperation and beginning to feel the pain of the damage they could do to me, my mind shifted into overdrive, and I prayed the photo was still there, just maybe. And grabbing my wallet, I fingered my way through its contents. With welcomed relief, I pulled out a black and white photograph of a young blonde woman in that classic bathing suit pose by a pool and showed it to them. At first they seemed almost disappointed that I could produce a picture. And as they passed it around, I told them her name was Suzanne. Then Enid, to my relief, nodded approval. Yeah, not bad, nice. Yeah, real nice, a looker. You want to hang on to that one, Meanie said. Miney seemed a bit let down. He took another look and then handed the photo back. Look, guys, I like Molly. I tried to wet my lips and took a deep breath. She's really nice. I never meant to insult her, but Suzanne and I, well, I didn't want to lead your sister to think any, and I shrugged my shoulders as I tried to conceal shaky fingers putting the photo back in my wallet. You understand? I hoped they grasped what I was implying. The brothers looked at each other as if silently conferring. Sure, we get it. You was just being faithful to your girlfriend, offered Enid, smiling as if he'd just discovered his brain really worked. The gathered crowd, showing disappointment, began to disperse. Hey, okay, it's cool. We appreciate you not leading our sister on like. We'll let her know the story. She'll understand. He slapped me on the back of my now damp shirt and looked at the other two for agreement with his interpretation. They nodded in unison, and now my best buddies introduced themselves, whose first names I've long forgotten. To cinch my acquittal, I added to the charade. Believe me, if it hadn't been for Suzanne, well, you know, I really like your sister. Yeah, otherwise, who knows? Maybe you'd been our brother-in-law someday. Enid's playful punch on my shoulder knocked me off balance. The brothers thought this was hilarious, but the thwarted Miney frowned and looked like he'd lost a piece of a puzzle. I figured he had a thing for Molly, hence his involvement, and I wanted to say, she's all yours, you idiot, but you better learn to dance. Satisfied I was worthy to serve in their navy, my interrogators made some small talk, began shrinking in size, and then moved off. No doubt to make sure the company barracks remained uncontaminated.
So I'll ask you a few questions, then turn it over to the audience. My first question is, where do you get these characters from?
Characters from life, and then some just made up. You know, it's like I said, everybody has a story. You know,
Yeah.
You do too. You could write a book about you, probably, and that C you got and how it affected you.
Still going to therapy over it. The character Old, it's his life throughout the whole book. How much personal did you put into the character?
There's the rub. Yeah, when my family was reading the manuscript, it confused them because they thought since it was an I character and a memoir, it should be me, you know. And yes, some of it is me. A lot of the incidents that occur, I lived through, but I guess what critics now call this is an auto-fiction. And you take your life and you screw around with it until you have some fun with it. And that's basically this. you'd start writing something you know about, and then you begin thinking, well, what if I had done this instead of that? And then you begin going off in that direction. And that's what I did with Old. I mean, a lot of things I did not do in this book. And a lot of things I did do, but it was kind of playing around with my own life and what would have been like if I hadn't done this, if I hadn't done that. And maybe this could have been the life that I led, but you know, nothing extraordinary, nothing different, but just fun to play around with. And I guess I hope that in doing that, it would be interesting enough for other readers to read it just as a story. So I just used the memoir form as a way of putting the book together.
But you can go anywhere, any direction you choose. So that's the
That's
beauty
right.
of it being autofiction. Speaking of the character Old, you actually started your writing career after you retired, correct? Why did you wait?
Sorry?
Why did you wait?
Probably didn't have time. I was busy writing
Was life
other
getting in
things.
the way?
Yeah. Actually, on the side, all my life I've played around with making up things, making up stories. I remember when I was, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years old, I would write things that I didn't want anybody else to see, and I would cut out the insides of a book and hide them in there. I don't know why, but I just did. I don't even remember what I wrote at that time, but I think I've always been a writer in my head.
And now, how often do you write every day?
No, I'm, a lot of people, like Jenny has a group of people where they have prompts. They get together and write about a prompt, and I can't do that. I usually write in my head before I put anything down on paper. I'll think the story through until I think I've got something going, and then I'll start. And that may not be what I end up with, but that's what gets me started. So I can't just sit down and write every day. But when I'm ready to write, I seem to go. It goes pretty fast.
It goes fast. One more question I'll ask you and then turn it over to the audience. Did you write this book linearly, or did you construct and put together? How did you write? How did you put together your book?
Physically?
Physically? Chronologically?
There's a program that you can use.
No, I'm sorry, I meant what you actually wrote.
Or what I actually wrote.
Did you write from start to finish, or did you write
There were
by
pieces.
piecing?
No, there were pieces.
They were
Yeah,
pieces.
it didn't go from beginning to, no. It was not chronologically written. It was written in pieces. And then I put all the pieces together. For instance, it does start with the very beginning, his first memory that he has, and goes through, his early years. But in passages where I deal with my dad or with my mother, in those cases I changed those so that it went back into time and dealt with what I was like as a youngster and the way my parents saw me. So, no, it's not chronologically written. I can't write outline form. A lot of people outline the whole thing. I can't do that.
Interesting. I like how you tied everything together, though. So
I'm not saying what I produce is any good, but that's the way I write.
does anybody have any
I
questions?
have a
Yeah,
question.
Go ahead.
In one part of it, I think in the beginning you mentioned the only true statement was from the commander in the Navy that was the pilot. What was that like, meeting him in real person, a World War II Navy ace?
Yeah, that was, it was unbelievable. I mean, the guy was, there's a part in the book where I'm an enlisted man, but I'm with a commander, and he's flying a plane. It's a twin engine, and he allows me to sit in the co-pilot seat and fly the plane for a while, which was very exciting. And he was very good to me at the time, and I had no idea what his background was. But when I was watching a video of the war in the Pacific, there he was, shot in his airplane, He had just come back from a mission, and he had a bunch of Japanese flags on the fuselage showing how many he'd shot down. It turned this out that this guy was a World War II hero. He was a World War ace. Somewhere in the book, I think I list how many medals he's gotten, what he's done. And it was just fascinating to me how ordinary he acted. And yet, here was this guy who had been shot down, you know, hidden in the Philippines, and just a crazy life that he never, ever talked about.
And you were oblivious to his fame when you
Yeah,
met him.
yeah. And I had to put him in this, even it was part of the auto fiction, but he was real. He was a real character.
Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else have a question?
Are you a jazz aficionado?
I'm sorry?
Jazz? Do you like jazz?
Oh, yeah, I'm a jazz fan. Yeah. When other people were thinking about Good Golly, Miss Molly, I wasn't. My musical taste was pretty much, from the teenager on, pretty much a jazz fan. Yeah.
Nice choices of
Yeah.
songs that you put in there.
Did you play the soundtrack as you wrote?
And I might Marty is my agent. He won't accept 10%. He's been very good.
Marty, did you want to add any thoughts to
Oh, that's
Royce?
me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say that it's so easy. I sent a message, I had to think, an email, and I addressed it to my literate friends. And then I got a few emails from people who say, well, I'm literate too. How come I didn't get it?
Yes.
Hi, Derek Wiggum. Were there any other authors or books that maybe inspired you while you were kind of compiling it, or
Authors who inspired me?
Mm-hmm.
While you were writing?
Whew. Yeah, probably.
Consciously or subconsciously?
Yeah. Right now, I'm writing I've got another collection of short stories, and in a couple of them, I was experimenting with being really minute with words, and just seeing, because Elwood, what's his name? The writer, Elwood, I can't think of his last name right now. Anyway, he said that any story can be told through dialogue. And so I'm trying to tell a couple of stories, just straight dialogue, very, very little description. But as far as influence, I think so many authors that I've read or studied all lead somewhere toward wanting to write. Yeah, but I can't say I could name any one particular writer.
What about the opening line of your book?
What about the opening line of your book? He said, any inspiration for that?
Called me old? Well, of course I was thinking of Call Me Ishmael. And I think I mentioned that I am paraphrasing somebody.
Are there any other questions? Well, thank you very. Oh, one more. Go ahead.
A couple of times I was over at your place and I said to see Watson and, oh, maybe Jane. And Jane told me that you were busy in the other room writing your memoirs. Is this the result of that, or are there memoirs also?
I quit my memoirs. I just decided it was more fun to make up than it was to just write what really happened. So this is my memoir, yeah, but not.
Got it.
Thank you, Royce.
Well, Royce, thank you very much. I wish you the best. As time goes by, please purchase behind the counter. Would you like to sign some books now?
Sure.
All right.